All right, so we're wrapping up the Reformation today. All right, we're going to be wrapping up with the Catholic Reformation. So at the time, the Catholic Church was seeing a lot of people leaving the church, a lot of different sects break out, like kind of come about, meaning sections of a new, all these new little faiths grounded in the Christian faith, but practicing it differently. Sects, SECT. Right? Different sections of. And so they started to realize, like, hey, maybe we want to fix some things, right? Maybe we want to keep our power, keep people involved in the church, keep people liking the Catholic Church. So we might have to change a couple things by doing that, okay? So what did they change? And we'll talk about how they changed. And so the Catholic Reformation. By the mid-16th century, Protestantism was well established in many parts of Europe. Situation in Europe didn't look good for the Catholic Church. They were losing a ton of people, right? However, the Catholic Church had its own Reformation in the 16th century that gave it a new strength, all right? So remember, a lot of people didn't necessarily want to break off from the church, right? They just didn't like a lot of stuff that the church was doing or not doing. And so if the church was willing to change or trying to change, they could hold on to some of those people. So three factors brought about the Catholic Reformation. You're going to want to know the three factors. You're going to want to underline them. They were the Jesuits, the reform of the papacy, which means the office of the Pope, all right, and the Council of Trent. Those were the three factors that led to Reformation within the church, okay? So they were the Jesuits, that's a group of priests, and we'll talk about them. The reform of the papacy, which is the office of the Pope, right, kind of fixing that, and the Council of Trent. All right, so we'll start with the Jesuits. The Jesuits were also known as the Society of Jesus. All right. Ignatius of Loyola, you can underline his name. He was a Spanish nobleman. He founded the society. Good old Ignatius. I don't think I've met an Ignatius in my lifetime. Any of you? Ignatius? What do you go by for short? Iggy? You know any Iggies? I don't. I think there was a comic strip, Iggy. That's the only Iggy I know, right? Iggy? I think a little short fat guy. What?
Iggy Azalea.
But is that really her full name?
I don't know.
I don't know. If her name is Ignatius, that's weird. She doesn't look like an Ignatius, right? But it is. But she does go by Iggy. What's that, Ashley?
I said I'm pretty sure this is her stage name.
Iggy. Yeah, I think so. Because that's kind of an interesting full name, I guess. I don't know. I don't even know what it would be short for a girl. Izzy would be Isabel. Iggy. Yeah, I don't know. All right, so good old Ignatius. He starts this society, all right? All Jesuits took a vow of absolute obedience to the Pope. All right, so no half-stepping on the Pope. Whatever the Pope said, they did. Jesuits used education to spread their message. Jesuit missionaries were very successful in restoring Catholicism to parts of Germany and Eastern Europe, and they also spread it to other parts of the world. So if you're describing the Reformation, you're going to want to talk about the Jesuits as being a group of priests that were beholden to the Pope. They listened to the Pope, and then they used education to get out the message of the Catholic Church. And when you think about it, again, we trust teachers, right? We trust people that are teaching us. There you go. Mira tells us Amethyst Amelia Kelly. I don't know where she came up with Iggy. So, interesting. So, Amethyst, that's a interesting name too. On to the Pope. The Pope Paul III saw the need to change the Catholic Church and appointed the Reform Commission in 1537. The commission blamed the church problems on the corruption of the popes. You want to underline that. So this reform group that he formed basically pointed their finger at the Pope and said, you know, it's the Pope's fault. As the Pope goes, the church goes. Remember, back in the notes, we talked about how people were getting really tired of the Pope wanting power, wanting political gain, wanting money, not worrying about faith in God, faith in Jesus, but, leading armies into battle and selling, honoring the selling of indulgences to make more money. Remember all those things. So people were basically pointing, this group, this Reformation group, council pointed at the Pope and said, you got to fix you. You got to fix the office of the Pope, do what's right. And people will start to buy into the church again. They'll realize that you're doing the right things, all right? Renaissance Pope had been involved in a lot of questionable financial dealings, Italian political, military affairs. In 1545, Pope Paul III began the Council of Trent. Underline that. The Council of Trent. It was made up of church leaders and theologians. Theologians are people that study theocracy, the Bible. They study the sacred scriptures to teach how you're supposed to be, and the history of the Bible and those things. The council met off and on for 18 years. It reaffirmed the traditions of Catholic teachings, and according to the council, now this is important, underline it, both faith and good works were necessary for salvation. Both faith and good works. Remember, what did Martin Luther say? Only faith was necessary. So the Catholic Church is really beholden to, they're holding on to this value of faith and good works are needed to be saved. All right? That's a big deal that they still debate when they have these conversations about Protestant churches and Catholic churches. All right? It's a huge one. The 7 sacraments were still held up, all right? The Catholic view of the Eucharist and celibacy were all upheld. So the Eucharist is when they have communion, all right? And that it becomes the body and blood of Jesus Christ, and they practice this to remember his death and sacrifice. That would be how the Catholic Church teaches it. And then celibacy. The priests and nuns and people who could still not be married, could still not have sex, could still not have kids. Understand? Major difference still today, between the Catholic Church and Protestant faiths, Baptist, Methodist, Episcopalian. All right, so if you see an essay that asks, what are the major differences, that would be a major one. All right, however, this is a big one. This is a huge reform in the Catholic Church. You're going to want to underline it. The selling of indulgences were forbidden. The selling of indulgences were forbidden. So that was a big check mark in the column of reform, that they weren't going to honor, hey, you did something wrong, just pay for this indulgence and you'll be okay. It'll take away that problem that you had, okay? It was a big reform. That was a major problem that Martin Luther had with the Catholic Church, okay? So those are some of the reforms. I gave you the 3 major kind of drivers of the Catholic faith reform, but we still see in today's culture that the Catholic Church is still very powerful. The office of the Pope is still very powerful, but also Protestant faiths are still very powerful. And so you still have that kind of, I don't know if it's a butting of heads anymore, but you definitely have a difference in how people practice their faith if they practice the Christian faith. You understand? You don't really see that in other faiths as much, that you have these all different types of people celebrating the same faith, but very different ways. All right, so pretty easy to understand, I think. Anybody have any questions about the notes? Pretty simple. We understand the 3 factors. All right, pretty simple stuff. I'll stop the tape there.